Hi everybody, welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles. This is my tag team partner, R-Truth.
Really?
That's right, little Jimmy.
Okay, Miz. Gary Rhodes, everybody.
And this is our Heel Heat WWE show. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the first match of the night. Kane and Daniel Bryan versus the Primetime Players.
Well, before the match started, the Shield was out in the audience, and they had a little, verbal battle. Nothing much, but the match wasn't too bad.
That was a decent match. I mean, you had the Primetime Players basically were being carried to a good match by two of the better workers in the business. And the whole story of the match was the Shield coming through to eventually attack them.
Forgot to mention one thing too, though, is this was Kane's 899th match.
Somehow I think that's low. He's been there 15 years as Kane. You got to figure that's like less than 80 shows a year. And he hasn't been injured that often.
80 shows. I don't know. We'll have to check in on it.
I mean, it just doesn't seem right. It doesn't add up right. You figure 900...
That's 80 shows a month.
No.
No.
No, 900 divided by 15 would be... 10...
Well, while George is taking his shoes off and counting. The match was pretty good. Solid. The Shield came in, interrupted. Got a pretty decent beatdown on Kane and Daniel Bryan.
It would be 60 shows a year. 60 matches a year, which he has to have more than.
True.
Because you figure with house shows, and that's not including the fake Diesel or Isaac Yankem characters either.
True.
Anyway,
that was really bugging you, wasn't it?
A little bit.
I'm telling you. Never mess with a math whiz. It's like fucking Rain Man. The next match was AJ versus Tamina. Basically, I figured it was going to be a squash match, which most of it was, until AJ came from behind and
hit the schoolboy.
Yeah.
Which, I really hate the Divas division for the fact that about 8 out of every 10 matches ends with a schoolboy.
Exactly.
Or a schoolgirl, whatever you want.
Yeah, well, she don't have no boobs, so it's schoolboy.
Ooh,
shoot, cowboy.
Anyway, it was your garden variety terrible Divas match. Nothing special, nothing to write home about. I do like Tamina's new gear. Other than that, I didn't even care for it on the show.
No, well, it's just since they've gotten rid of Beth
and
Karma. Natalie's pretty much insufficient character, or she's never around. It's really all the good workers are gone, and we're stuck with models. I think they actually need to go back to actually having women wrestlers. Women wrestlers can look attractive. Look at the 90s, Look at the early 2000s.
Medusa wasn't a bad-looking girl.
No.
Sensational Sherry wasn't bad-looking when played up to look good, not, scary Sherry.
Yeah, that was just all makeup to make her look that bad. I mean, she wasn't a bad-looking woman, you're right.
And to be perfectly honest, Luna Vachon wasn't even an ugly girl.
No, I mean, you take away the mohawk and the fake makeup and shit like that, she wasn't a bad-looking woman either. She was actually very attractive and in shape.
Yeah. I mean, would you say she kind of resembles Natalie Neidhart without the makeup?
I'd say something like that.
Something to that effect. But that's getting a little bit off the subject. Back to the show that we're talking about. The next thing we had was CM Punk and Paul Heyman came out to cut a promo, and were interrupted by The Miz, who basically goaded CM Punk into doing a lie detector test later on in the show.
I did like the fact that when Punk and Heyman came out, they came out with the WWE Encyclopedia and started kind of jabbing at it.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I think Paul Heyman adds that little bit of salt to the top of CM Punk's steak.
You know what would have been funny, though? Is if they would have, when Heyman's going through the encyclopedia and go, who did Randy Orton win his first world title from? Or just something like that. That's a little dig.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like little shit like that.
You do. You like little shit.
You are a little shit.
Anyway. Our next match of the night was Cena and Sheamus, the two superheroes, versus Dolph Ziggler and The Big Show. I didn't really think it was anything special.
It wasn't special, and they buried two guys.
Yes.
You're burying Ziggler, which you're supposed to make him look like a threat for Cena, but now it just looks like a warm-up match for Cena.
Yep.
I'm tired of Super Cena. I really hope that somehow they pull a swerve and let Ziggler get over their next match.
Well, that's what I don't get. They added the stipulation later on in the show that Ziggler has to put up his Money in the Bank. Didn't Cena already lose a Money in the Bank this year?
He did. And you know, the thing is, okay, that's for the world title, so all he can do is cash in on the world title if they let him get it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, honestly, if Vince is playing it smart and lets Ziggler get over on Cena, that'll make his career. The same thing happened when they had to put the Money in the Bank up the last time against Jericho, and it made him look like $1 million. This would only make him look that more valuable to the company, and he's a lot younger.
There you go.
The next, you right?
Go ahead.
The next match we're going to talk about was Damien Sandow versus Santino Marella. Now, Damien, before he started the match, he came out and he cut a pretty decent promo, wouldn't you say?
When he brought the fan in and hire an apprentice.
Yes, I like that idea. I really do.
It kind of harks back to the day of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and involving the fans. And this was obviously a plant. And I think Ted, some of them were plants and some weren't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I liked it. It drew back. It's some old-fashioned heel stuff, heel heat. And something that I read about that today, Jim Ross was writing about that. He put, he knew that Sandow would be somebody when he went to FCW, and Sandow spent a whole day watching tapes of Dick the Destroyer Bauer just to get like what an old school heel was. And you can see it in him. He's an old school heel. He's just like the heels were in the 80s and 90s before heels were cool.
Exactly. And the thing is, he's a mental heel, and that's what I like about him so much. I'm so high on him. I'm just hoping that they don't bury him until Cody comes back. And I like the tag team. I really do. I think the tag team is going to make him and Cody that much more valuable to the company also.
Are you higher on him than Evan Bourne is on Weed?
No, but I've never been high on Evan Bourne.
I didn't ask if you were higher on Evan Bourne. I said if you higher on Sandow.
No, I'm higher on Sandow than Evan Bourne on Weed.
There you go.
Oh my God. People.
Another train wreck that we're talking about was a Brad Maddox promo. I think he's a decent talker. It reminded me a lot of the Jericho promos with Ralphus. The promo wasn't so much a train wreck, whereas the match that was set up later was, and we'll get to that when we get there. I thought he handled himself well, made himself look like a credible performer to be on the show, not just a throwaway gimmick that they did for the one match.
No, I thought it was good. Speaking of matches, our next match was Alberto Del Rio versus Sin Cara. A match that I was thinking was going to be a shit match. Because the last time these two faced each other, it was a short squash match, pretty much.
Or Sin Cara got destroyed.
Exactly. This here was probably, in my opinion, one of the best matches of the night. I don't know if you agree with me or not. Actually, this is a close number 2. Yeah. Our best match is coming up later. My boy's in it. But I really getting rowdy, little Jimmy. I was really impressed by the way that these two worked good with each other, yes. And there was no botches.
And if you notice, Sin Cara works a lot better with the Spanish-speaking wrestlers. I think a lot of Sin Cara's issues are the language factor. He doesn't know enough English, or any at all, to get by wrestling English-speaking wrestlers. When it gets translated by the ref, it loses a little bit. You lose the pacing.
Exactly.
And speaking of pacing, we're going to slow the pace down a little bit here and go to our question of the week. Now, last week's question was, who do you guys think will be the biggest star coming out of the Shield? Now, we got an answer from one of our friends here, Joshua Adams, 1044. He's also the guy that had me call you James Storm on our last show.
Well, thank you, Joshua.
He put, Dean Ambrose is, or at least should be, a bigger star because he is CM Punk 10 years ago, but they've put the first NXT title on Rollins. WWE hasn't pushed the Samoans like they used to, but with all three being impressive, I'd push Ambrose. He can cut a great promo and work. What's your opinion on it, Gary?
I'm kind of agreeing with him there. I've always been kind of high on Ambrose, what I've seen of him. Yes. And I've been waiting for Ambrose to come out since before WrestleMania. And I'm just glad to see him on the main show. If this was just an excuse to get him on the main show and this angle only lasted a couple of weeks, I'll be happy with it as long as he stays on the Raw roster.
Here's my opinion. I think the three of them bring something different each to the table. Ambrose is obvious. He's your kind of Bryan Pillman, Roddy Piper type wrestler, whereas Seth Rollins is more of a technical Bret Hart style wrestler, and Roman Reigns is, I almost call him Luther Reigns.
I know, right?
He's just a big Samoan powerhouse like they've had several times, kind of like in the vein of Umaga. I think they all got something to bring to a table. Honestly, I really like Ambrose. If you ask me who my favorite of the three was, I'd say Ambrose. I think Seth Rollins has the best work ethic, therefore I think Seth Rollins is the one that's going to go the furthest.
I don't know. I like him too. Don't get me wrong. He's a Paul Heyman guy. Well, CM Punk guy.
Yeah. But that's just my opinion. I like, out of the three, my favorite character is Dean Ambrose, but I think Seth Rollins is going to go the furthest just because of what I know of his drive to become the star.
Yeah. Well, he did come from nothing.
Yeah. And then our question of the week for this week, do you like Vince McMahon as a face? Let us know what you think about it. Hit us up on our Twitter, put it on our Facebook, put it down where?
Down there.
Right down there in the comments. We'll talk about what we think about it next week. And coming off of that, speaking of Vince as a face, we had Vicky Guerrero and Vince McMahon in the ring talking about setting up the pay-per-view.
Well, like we mentioned earlier, they gave Cena and Ziggler the ladder or the Money in the Bank ladder match.
Yes.
I think, which is it could work in one or two different ways, like we talked about earlier. It could kill them, or it can make them. I hope it makes them, but the way that they're so high on Cena, it'll probably kill them.
Yeah. And then the other thing that came out of it was going into the previous thing with Miz and CM Punk, that if CM Punk was found to be lying, Paul Heyman would have to fight Ryback next week, which we'll talk about in a little bit when we get to that segment. But overall, it came out, it was Vince, happy face Vince, coming out, confronting heel Vicky.
Alright, well, next we're going to talk about the next match. Brad Maddox versus Randy Orton. It's Maddox's chance to get a contract with the WWE.
I did not like it. This is the second time you've put this guy on an actual match on your show, and this is the second time you've squashed him. First time was with Ryback, which I was okay with because it was part of the angle. This time you're squashing him to a guy that he has no previous dealings with, other than the end of the match it's set up
for the Shield to attack
Orton. Yeah, it's set up for the Shield to attack Orton. But he had no previous dealings with Orton. Orton has no reason to squash him. It's kind of like when they would bring out a heel and say, okay, you're going to face a Great Khali, just because he's a destroyer. I think Brad Maddox, like we talked about earlier, he had great promo skills, and from what I've seen of him, he's pretty decent in the ring. But, again, I just think it's a little bit odd that you would squash this guy twice. I hope that they're going to do kind of a 1-2-3 kid gimmick where he gets a surprise win, and that's what actually brings him on.
It could work. Well, next thing we're going to talk about is it ended up being, it was going to be a tag team match, Kofi and Truth versus Barrett and Cesaro.
It was a what?
It was going to be a tag team match, player. Because then, the incomparable, the immortal, Peanut Head himself,
Theodore R. Long,
Teddy Long, came out and made it a fatal four-way for one of the two titles, either the Intercontinental or the United States title.
So, and the fans got to vote on that.
Exactly. And what do you expect? With a heel guy, they're going to vote for the heel.
So the U.S. title was up. It was Kofi Kingston versus R-Truth, Gary's guy, versus Wade Barrett versus Antonio Cesaro.
My guy. I'm high on Cesaro, dude. I'm telling you. Guy never fails to impress.
So you're high on Sandow, you're high on Cesaro.
I'm telling you, I'm liking a lot of the new talent that's coming out, dude. Usually they got a whole bunch of shitty, kiddish gimmicks. These two are really good, really good gimmicks. I'm really impressed with Cesaro's in-ring ability. You're talking about wrestling like an old school wrestler. He wrestles like an old school wrestler.
The thing of it was, I think this was a showcase for Barrett and Cesaro, honestly. Oh, if you look at it, they had the most impact in the match, and both of them they wrestle a similar style, a hard-hitting,
Mm-hmm.
fast-paced, beat-your-ass kind of style. And I really enjoyed what I seen out of both of them. Again, like you, I am a big fan of Antonio Cesaro. I'm also a fan of Wade Barrett. I think the right guy won the match with Cesaro winning.
Retained his belt.
Yeah, he retained his belt, so it didn't cost him nothing, and they put a great TV match on.
Exactly. That was probably. I mean, that was the best match of the night.
I would say by far it was the best match.
I just love the finish where Cesaro just grabs Kofi, picks him up like with a gut wrench, and then just puts him in his move.
Yeah, the neutralizer.
The neutralizer. I was very impressed. The man is a freaking bear.
A bear?
Yeah, like you.
Everybody's got a price, my man. The next thing we had was they finally got to Miz TV where we were going to have the lie detector test with CM Punk, and they did a little bit of verbal jabs back and forth with each other. They started asking hard-hitting questions, and boom, out comes the Shield to right the wrongs.
Exactly.
Before Punk could answer if anyone was helping him, they attacked, and they laid out Miz, they laid out Team Hell No before Ryback came down and laid them out and actually got to Punk.
Very impressed. I like seeing the good guys lose. Sorry. They beat up Punk, or he beat up Miz pretty bad. Then of course the surprise at the end, Ryback comes out and squashes Punk.
Yeah.
Who knew that was going to happen? With the fans going nuts before he turns around.
But here's the thing about that. If you follow WWE long enough, this is kind of the formula.
Mm-hmm.
If the face gets over on the TV shows, the heel's going to win at the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
If the heel gets over on the TV shows, the face wins on the pay-per-view.
Vice versa.
So
unless they're just burying a guy, then
then it's off script. But I don't think they have any reason to bury CM Punk, especially since he just tied John Cena's record today.
Exactly. 380 days as the reigning, defending, undisputed WWE champion.
Anyway,
Best in the world.
Which, the thing that's actually just breaking news today was that CM Punk had to have emergency knee surgery. They didn't say when it happened, but he basically went to Dr. James Andrews, the 3 worst words that any athlete can hear, and had to have his knee scoped, take care of a little bit of a problem. Now, from what I'm reading, it may endanger his match at the pay-per-view. I don't know if it'll be a take the belt off him situation, or if they're just going to make it a spiel, since it is a hardcore match, basically a no-rules match where Ryback gets beat up by the Shield before anything really happens, and Punk crawls up the ladder and gets his belt back.
Or just carry Punk up.
There you go. But he got his knee was scoped today. Hopefully it's nothing bad. I enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to The Rock vs. CM Punk. I think it's a true era versus era match, more so than The Rock versus Cena, because Cena, I understand that he's the biggest star they have, but Cena to me doesn't represent the new era that's just beginning.
No,
Cena represents the last 10 years.
Exactly.
And I think CM Punk represents the next 5 or 6 years. Kind of like when Austin wrestled Bret Hart. Bret wasn't at the end of his career. He had another 5-6 years left in him. But Bret Hart represented the new generation era, and Austin represented the Attitude Era.
I totally agree with you on that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking Cena. I'm not a fan of Cena. But he's just... It's time for something new to happen, or you're just going to lose all your viewers.
And the viewership was down this week. The show wasn't that great. I mean, it drug on at some times. There were some good segments. I think they hurt themselves anytime they put a non-match in the main event spot, in my opinion. People don't stick around to see a talk show.
Exactly.
They turn
they do have the dark match. The fans are lucky in the arena because they now have a dark match after the fact. But we don't get that.
No.
Just end it with a match.
Yeah, and you could still do the segment. You could do the segment or at the 2-hour mark or somewhere else in the show. I mean, it's not the same as when Austin would chase Vince McMahon out of the ring. You still had action. There was hardly any action, and there was no expected action, so the fans didn't stick around for it, in my opinion. And they lost a lot of viewership. Now, Some of that is the fact that the Giants and Redskins were on Monday Night Football, and they both have big fan bases, being New York and Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is the product that they're putting out. Because when the Monday Night Wars were on, Monday Night Football got great ratings, but so did both of the wrestling shows.
Oh, exactly. And that's why I'm saying right now that the revolution or new attitude era has to start soon.
Yeah. But basically, that's all I got to say about this. Is there anything you need to add, GR?
That's it.
My name is George Coles,
I'm Gary Rhodes.
and this has been our Heel Heat Raw WWE show.